She always lived a life full of responsibilities, work, family, expectations. Everyone around her demanded something from her every single day, and deep inside, she was tired, very tired. She wanted to disappear for a while, to breathe in silence, to feel freedom, to be far away where no one knew her. So one evening, while her family thought she was busy working late, she opened her laptop and searched for a getaway. Not a luxury resort, not a tourist spot, but something cheap, quiet, and hidden. After scrolling for hours, she finally found it. Seaside Hotel, an escape from the world. The pictures looked old but inviting. The price was suspiciously low, but at that moment, she didn't care. It wasn't about comfort, it was about escape. She booked it instantly, her heart racing as if she had just committed a crime. She didn't tell her parents. She didn't tell her friends. No one knew. She left her phone on silent and wrote a fake excuse for work. To her family, she would just be busy, but in reality, she was planning to vanish for a few days. The next morning, she packed lightly, just clothes, a journal, and her camera. She slipped out of the house without a word. As the train pulled away from the city, she looked out the window with a strange mix of excitement and fear. For the first time in years, she was completely alone. No messages, no expectations, no one checking on her. She smiled, thinking she had finally found her freedom. But little did she know, the place she was heading toward wasn't an escape. It was a trap, and her decision to keep it a secret would become the biggest mistake of her life. The morning of her departure felt different. She woke up before dawn, quietly moving around her room, careful not to wake anyone. Her small suitcase was ready, tucked under the bed the night before. Every step she took felt like a secret. The house was silent. Her parents were asleep, her phone buzzing faintly on the nightstand with unread messages she ignored. She didn't want to explain. Not now. Not to anyone. For once in her life, she wanted a journey that belonged only to her. She slipped out the front door, her heart pounding as though she was escaping. The cool air outside hit her face, fresh and sharp, making her feel alive. The taxi driver gave her a curious look when she loaded her bag, but she just smiled faintly. No conversation, no explanations. The train station was quiet, nearly empty at that early hour. She bought her ticket in cash, deliberately avoiding her credit card. No digital trace, no evidence. It almost felt like she was erasing herself from the world, even if only for a little while. As the train began to move, she leaned back in her seat, staring out at the fading city skyline. The tall buildings, the crowded streets, the noise, all of it slowly disappeared behind her. For the first time, she felt weightless. Her journal lay on her lap, untouched, waiting for her to fill its blank pages with stories of freedom. She imagined long walks by the sea, quiet nights of solitude, and mornings without demands. She whispered to herself, "This is what I need, just a little time to breathe." But what she didn't know was that this journey she took in search of peace was leading her straight into something far darker than she ever imagined. The train screeched to a stop at a small, forgotten station by the sea. She stepped out, her suitcase rolling behind her, and instantly felt the cold wind cutting through the salty air. There were no crowds, no tourists, just silence, broken only by crashing waves in the distance. A narrow road led her to the hotel she had booked online. From afar, it looked grand but faded, like a relic from another time. Its paint was peeling, windows clouded, and a crooked sign swung back and forth with the breeze. Seaside Hotel. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit, with a faint smell of damp wood and old salt. The walls were lined with black and white photographs of smiling guests from decades ago, their faces faded, their eyes strangely hollow. She shivered but forced a smile at the receptionist. An elderly man sat behind the counter, his posture stiff, his eyes sharp. He barely spoke, only slid a heavy brass key across the counter toward her. No paperwork, no ID, just a silent gesture to the staircase. She hesitated, then picked up the key and climbed the creaking wooden steps. Each step echoed like a warning. Her room was at the very end of the hallway. When she unlocked the door, the room looked almost ordinary. Small bed, dusty curtains, and a mirror that seemed older than the walls themselves. She set her bag down, trying to shake off the unease. But something felt wrong. The silence was too heavy, the air too cold, and the hotel too empty. Not a single other guest in sight. That night, as she lay in bed, the waves roared outside. And in the distance, somewhere in the hallway, she thought she heard footsteps. Slow, careful, as if someone was standing right outside her door. That first night in the seaside hotel was restless. The room was colder than it should have been, the curtains fluttering even though the windows were shut tight. She wrapped herself in the blanket, telling herself it was just nerves. After all, she had never traveled completely alone before. But sometime past midnight, a sound pulled her from half-sleep. A faint creak, followed by slow, dragging footsteps in the hallway. She froze, listening closely. The steps stopped just outside her door. Her heart pounded. She waited, holding her breath, expecting a knock, or at least the sound of someone moving away. But there was nothing, only silence. Finally, she gathered the courage to get up. With shaky hands, she opened the door. The hallway was empty. Dim light flickered from a single bulb, casting long shadows across the peeling wallpaper. She stepped out cautiously, but all she saw was stillness. Not a soul in sight. She closed the door quickly, locking it twice, trying to laugh at herself. Maybe it's just the old building settling, she whispered. But as soon as she lay back down, she heard it again. This time, it wasn't footsteps. It was a whisper, soft, indistinct, like a voice carried by the wind. She sat up, her ears straining. The whisper grew clearer. It was coming from the mirror on the wall. For a moment, she thought she heard her own name. Terrified, she covered the mirror with a sheet from the bed and turned on the small bedside lamp, leaving it burning through the night. Sleep never returned. Every creak, every gust of wind, every shadow on the wall felt alive. She had wanted solitude, but now, she wasn't sure she was alone at all. Outline 5. The hidden room. She discovers a locked door behind her hotel room mirror. The following evening, exhaustion weighed heavily on her. She hadn't slept properly since she arrived, haunted by whispers and footsteps that no one else seemed to hear. Determined to convince herself it was all in her imagination, she began inspecting the room more carefully. Her eyes kept returning to the mirror. It was unusually large, mounted directly onto the wall. The frame was old and cracked, its edges covered with dust. Something about it felt wrong. She pressed her hand against the glass. Cold. Too cold. She tapped lightly and froze. The sound wasn't the dull echo of a solid wall. It was hollow. Curiosity battled with fear. She dragged the small desk aside, gripped the mirror's edge, and with one hard pull, it shifted slightly. Behind it, her breath caught, was a narrow wooden door hidden in plain sight. The brass handle was rusted, locked tight, but when she pressed her ear against it, she thought she heard something. A faint scratching, a distant hum, or maybe breathing. Her hands trembled as she searched her bag for something to pry it open. The key from the hotel counter felt heavy in her pocket, almost as if it belonged to this door. She slid the key in. Slowly it turned. The lock clicked open with a sound that echoed louder than it should have in the silent room. Pushing the door open, she was met with darkness. The smell hit her first, damp, mold, and something metallic. Inside, The space was cramped, lined with shelves. On them lay objects, old suitcases, faded clothes, personal belongings, things that clearly belonged to other travelers. Her stomach dropped as realization set in. These weren't forgotten items. They were traces, evidence. She backed away, fear clawing at her chest, the door creaking wider as though inviting her in. And then she heard it, a whisper closer than ever before. "You shouldn't have found this." Her hands shook as she held the dim bedside lamp toward the small hidden room. The weak light illuminated just enough to make her blood run cold. Inside, the shelves were stacked with belongings, wallets, purses, keys, and even passports. Each item carried a name, a face, a life. Some were decades old, their leather cracked and faded. Others looked disturbingly new, as though the owners had been here only days ago. She picked up a small camera, its battery long dead, but when she pressed the button, the memory light flickered. Her heart pounded. She placed it back, terrified of what images it might hold. On the opposite wall, photographs were pinned. Not ordinary photographs. Hotel guests, smiling at the front desk, standing by the seaside, sitting in the very room she was in. She recognized the wallpaper, the furniture. But what chilled her most was the fact that every photo ended the same way, with the guest disappearing from the collection. No happy ending. No forward, just a trail that stopped, like lives erased. Her breath came fast, shallow. "This can't be real," she whispered. But the truth was staring at her in dozens of forgotten belongings, hundreds of stolen faces. A faint creak echoed behind her. She spun around, the door to the hidden room swaying slightly. For a split second, she thought she saw movement in the dark hallway beyond. Someone was watching her. Someone who knew she had uncovered the secret. Panic surged. She stumbled back into her room, slamming the hidden door shut and dragging the mirror back into place. Her chest heaved, her mind screaming for escape. Her hands trembled violently as she stuffed her clothes back into the suitcase. She couldn't stay another second. The hotel wasn't just strange, it was dangerous. The whispers, the footsteps, the hidden room filled with lost belongings. It was all real. And she knew now that she was not the first. Her plan was simple. Get out before sunrise, disappear just as quietly as she had arrived. She pulled the suitcase into the hallway, the wheels squeaking against the wooden floor. But halfway down the hall, the lights flickered and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed her. Her chest tightened, breath sharp and fast. From somewhere behind her, slow, deliberate footsteps echoed. She spun around, but the hall was too dark to see. Only the faint outline of the mirror at the far end caught the weak moonlight, its glass reflecting a distorted figure. She froze. The figure wasn't her. Panic surged through her veins. She ran, dragging the suitcase until it tipped over, spilling her things across the floor. She didn't stop. Down the staircase, through the lobby, the desk was empty, the old man nowhere to be found. The front doors loomed ahead, her only chance of escape. But when she reached them, they wouldn't budge. Locked, sealed tight. Behind her, the whispers grew louder. Dozens of voices, overlapping, rising into a chilling chorus. And then she felt it, the icy breath on the back of her neck. She turned slowly, her eyes wide with terror. Standing just inches away was a tall, shadowy figure, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. In that instant, she realized the horrifying truth. The hotel hadn't just been watching her. It had been waiting for her. Her scream never left the lobby. By morning, the room key was back on the counter, ready for the next guest.